Oh.
Okay, we're on the air. So,
Okay.
let's see. Why don't we go? Why don't you go around the table and tell me your names? I'll compare them with what I've got on the list here.
I'm Anna.
You're Anna, okay.
I'm Kelsey.
Kelsey, great.
I'm Jenny.
Jenny, okay.
Hi, I'm Dobby.
You're Dobby, good. I can hear you all quite well.
So I had question 7. In chapter 23, Danny's father wants to know what his interest in the Bible has to do with UFOs. What do you think the true answer to this question would have been? What echoes of the Bible do you find in the novel? I think that throughout, especially later in the novel, as he actually travels to Jerusalem and stuff, his UFO journal really parallels his search and his investigation into the Bible. And I think that it's almost his way of just imagining his life in a different sense, because I think that he's still troubled by the Jewish issue that I think he thinks he has. You know, he thinks that he's kind of an outcast, and that it's still his kind of his release, you know, staying up late at night and creating a parallel kind of more adventurous kind of story that goes along with it, especially like when he's flying back in the plane. You know, I think that's something that everyone does to a certain extent. You imagine stuff flying on the, you know, outside of the windows and stuff, you know, whether it's superheroes or UFOs, and that, you know, he's imagining himself in that and, you know, leading a more interesting parallel life. So I think that's what it has to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few scenes that I'm glad you mentioned that, Jesse, because there's a few scenes in the book where the Danny of the journal meets the Danny outside the journal, like the one where, I know none of you remember this from your own experience, but back before 1967, Jerusalem was divided between Israel and Jordan, and the journal Danny is in Jerusalem, Jordan, with Rochelle, while the other Danny is in Jerusalem, Israel, by himself. And the journal Danny looks across the border to see the everyday Danny, and then something very similar happens with the journal Danny flying his UFO and imagining everyday Danny looking out the window and seeing the UFO. I did intend a lot of references to the Bible in the book. I don't know, did anyone else notice any others?
The only one that I discussed in class Monday was the name of the town. I can't remember what the name of the story.
Oh yeah, there were two different names.
Beersheba, yeah. Beersheba is the modern day name of the town,
Yeah.
but he states the biblical name first.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just know that town is mentioned in Genesis. I don't really know the significance of it or anything, but I'd imagine there's something to that.
Yeah, it's connected with the scene of Jacob's ladder.
Oh yeah, that was brought up
Which
too.
kind of parallels the towers.
Yeah, and that Danny, in his journal, he sees Jacob's ladder in the calendar in the library, and then he remembers him and his mother looking at that picture of Jacob's ladder. His mother saying, "I could never climb all those stairs."
Okay, so I have a question about whether Danny and his mother truly love each other. And I found this question because I was intrigued at like how the relationship was going to play out. I just recently lost my stepmom. I lost my biological mother about 6 years ago. So I'm really interested in like people's relationships with their mothers, especially with this story. And I was curious as to how the scene of his mother's death is going to play out, because I found in a lot of books where the teenage characters lose a parent, they're either really detailed and spot on, or they kind of like gloss over it. And I was curious as to which path you were going to choose with it. And this is an interesting take. I've never read a book where it's been like a kid imagining what must have happened based on, given no details, just saying she went to the hospital and then she was dead. But he wasn't actually there to know what was going on. But even so, I think like the book in and of itself is proof that Danny did truly love his mother. He used his journal as an escape. He wanted to avoid the pain of actually accepting that his mother was dying every day, and there's nothing he could do about it. And I think he also felt guilty, because there was a few lines in there where it talked about how she shouldn't have gone through with the pregnancy, and her doctors warned her against it, and he felt that his father blamed him for his mother's sickness, and I think he blamed himself, because he felt guilty. If he wasn't born, his mother wouldn't be like that. And I think that's also really evident in the scenes with the baby, especially the last scenes that we really talk about her when he ends up crushing her in the spaceship. That is really just like, to me, it was like his guilt of feeling like he killed his mother coming into play. Like, even though he used his journal as an escape and he wanted to create this whole new world where his life wasn't as depressing as his reality was to him, it still, his guilt crept into the journal, and that's kind of like the last scenes where he's really writing in the journal, and the journal lost all of its power after his guilt crept into it, and he killed this baby who was his mother in a sense. And the book didn't really talk about his mother all that much, but in the beginning scenes when it did talk about her and how she was always like waiting after school with the snack ready for him, and I think his mother really truly did love him, but he had a hard time dealing with that because he felt so guilty, and he kept pushing her away because he didn't know how to deal with the grief of losing her and the guilt he felt for being the cause of it. So he didn't really accept his mother's love, and I think part of it was he didn't feel worthy of it.
I think, no, I'm just nodding because I think you've been through something similar, and it seems to me your comments are very, very perceptive. I mean, I think we really, to understand how he feels about his mother, we have to ask to a great extent how he feels about that baby. That he's attached to her, wants her to be all right. He's at the same time relieved to be going off in the Jeep with Sergeant Yehoshua, Julian, and leaving her behind. And what you remember at one point, he says, "Is there hope?" And Julian says, "There's always hope, even when you're on the truck taking you to the gas chamber. There's hope. That's one thing you learn every day being in Israel." And then he says, "But is there hope for her?" And Julian says, "Just drive, Daddy."
Yeah. And I was really intrigued by all those scenes, especially when the baby came into play. Like, the parallels between the baby and the mother were just so strong. I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, but like, it was really evident for me. I actually kind of started tearing up around that, but it's just, I think he was, like, in a way, he wanted his mother to just die, so that he didn't have to live with the guilt. He didn't have to see her face every day or worry about when is it going to happen, how is it going to happen, and what's it going to be like. He just wanted that pain to be gone, because there's always that little bit of hope that once they're gone, you can move on. You're not going to have this constant weight hanging over your head, wondering when it's going to drop. But then, at the same time, he doesn't want that to happen because he doesn't want to lose his mother. He doesn't want that. I mean, he wants there to be hope that she will get better, even when there isn't any. And with like the baby when he was like driving away, like he wanted to get rid of her, but at the same time he also wanted her to be okay. But seeing her and gasping for breath, he knew there was nothing he could do to help her. Even like the doctors, there was nothing he could do, and it was just like this helpless feeling where he wanted hope, but knew there really wasn't any. But he did want to feel that realization.
Very good. I mean, it's trivial to say very good. What I can say, what I should put it better. It seems to me you've really plumbed the depths of the character, and I'm honored to hear your words.
All right. I'm Nicole. The question I had was, does the novel have a happy ending? Were you satisfied, and what were the resolution? I wouldn't say it's particularly happy. It's not like a fairy tale kind of happy ending, but I think there's definitely growth for Danny and the other characters as well. Was I satisfied? I think so. I would have liked to know more about what he did in college and like what, I mean, we're all at that age now, so kind of knowing like how that affected his life and what his relationship with his dad became, because they were kind of on their way to becoming close again, but they weren't really there yet. So that would be interesting to know. And then something I just noticed as we were talking is there's also a theme of forgiveness at the end. I was thinking about the scene where, I think it's in Julian's letter actually, where they're talking about the baby, and the baby, you know, is telling Danny that she loves him and will always, will always like love him and give him the water or whatever. That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, I can tell you that I intended it to be a very happy ending, and I wanted that. And I wanted to take up the question of Rochelle and Danny's mother again, because although it's somewhat embarrassing to admit it, Rochelle is kind of a mother to him.
Yeah.
She guides him through these very. She lures him first into this journey that he's going to experience, which Professor Joy has compared to Don Quixote's descent into the cave of Montesinos, and she's also the one who's there to explain to her. And on 2 occasions, she turns into an old woman.
Yeah.
And that after long, when my editor actually asked me what that was about, I found myself thinking of the triple goddess, who is both the maiden, the matron, and the crone. And I thought that was that aspect of Rochelle emerging. But I wanted to focus here on her being a mother figure. That the reason why Danny can't dance with Rosa is that he's already got a woman, namely his mother. It's just not very healthy.
There's a part where you reference Oedipus Rex, and it was very interesting because it was when Rochelle said that he had like an Oedipus foot, and so that, you know, obviously that makes you think a little bit more than just the foot, and so how he kind of has this unhealthy relationship with his mother, and there's the choice between his mother and Rosa, and he ultimately chooses his mother, and it just kind of keeps haunting him, and then when that injury happens to his foot, I think is when he finally realizes that.
I mean, at least according to the Freudians, I don't know quite how they apply it to young women, but certainly young men, our first sexual attraction is to our mother, and we all have what's called the Oedipus complex. And if we go through it, if we grow successfully, what happens is that we relinquish our mother to our father, and we go looking for somebody our own age. Now, it's at the end, and this was something that sort of bubbled up out of me, that Danny gives up Rochelle.
Yeah.
They said it should have been you and Rochelle from the beginning, Julia. Not Tom and Rochelle, not me and Rochelle even, but you and Rochelle. And lo and behold, having given up Rochelle, Danny can do what he couldn't do with Rosa. He can reach out to a girl and try to kiss her. And she says no, but sooner or later he'll find somebody who says. So yeah, I had intended that to be a very happy ending, recognizing that death always wins, except that it doesn't in another sense. Okay. Lizzie, now I know. I'll have to hear your a question that I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is, like, why did you pick UFOs? Like, was it because like you were interested in them when you were younger?
Yes. but then the question comes up, why was I interested in them when I was younger? And for me, you know, when I've given readings from the book, I've often anticipated the question, is it autobiographical? And I came up with an answer, which was a joke, but that the car chases, the intergalactic sex, and the descent into the netherworld are all autobiographical. Other parts, however, I made up. But the real autobiography is, yes, I did grow up as an adolescent with a very slowly dying mother, and I chose UFOs as my way of coping with that, as Danny does, for reasons that I think I try to convey in the book, and that is that that death is the most alien thing we can imagine. I mean, I don't want to swear what happens to us after we die, but it looks like a pretty fair bet that whatever we are, if we are anything after we die, it's not what we are now. And yet at the same time, death is a part of us. Your death was born with you, just so was mine, on the day we were born. So, aliens in our airspace, I think I fastened on them with the unerring instincts of the unconscious as what I needed to study, to live with what I was living with. And that was the story I told.
Kind of off of that, when you made the switch from UFOs when you were little to religious studies, was it for the same kind of reason, exploring what death meant, that kind of thing?
I think it must have been. There's a Unitarian, the late Forrest Church, who was a Unitarian minister, has said that the essence of religion is to be alive and know we're going to die. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily what religion has to be or how religion has to be studied, but it's what I intuitively felt to be true. And yeah, so I was a UFO investigator all my life. Okay, and Molly.
Yes. So we've kind of danced around this subject the whole time, but just to explicitly say it as a question now. So Danny uses his journals as a form of escape from the things in his life that he can't face, such as his dying mother. So my question is, why does he choose this as the escape? And you kind of just talked about it a little bit, but so I would consider his journal to be a form of art, as writing is a form of art. Do you think that art is the only accessible form of escape for people, or would it have been possible for Danny to escape his troubles through anything but a fantasy?
That's a really good question. My sense is that, okay, ideally, the whole family should have gone into therapy. As one early reader of the book pointed out, and I think this was also very profound, that everyone in the family, this little matchbox of a house, everyone assumes that the problem is the mother's illness, which it isn't. The problem is the emotional disconnection among the characters and their unwillingness to face the reality of her illness. If they could have gone into therapy, I think that would have been the better solution.
Yeah.
And the journal would have been unnecessary. And I would probably have become something else in my life rather than a religious studies professor.
Yeah.
For various reasons, I think therapy is impossible, just because to do that, I mean, even back in the 1960s, it tended to be assumed that to see a therapist, you had to be a raving lunatic. The idea that you might go, that people whom we would call normal might go to a therapist to deal with certain emotional issues just wasn't known. But even today, the family has, as I describe it, and I have to say I am describing it on the basis of my own, just has too much investment in denial to go see a therapist. So that, sorry?
No, I was
yeah. That solution for Danny is probably not even theoretically possible. There were others that were theoretically possible. All of them would have been more self-destructive than the one that Danny chose.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting, because what I noticed was that, like you said, he didn't have support. Well, it's not that he didn't have supportive people, but the people that were in his life were not supportive enough that he could talk to them about what he was really feeling and how much this was really impacting him. So in his journal, he created these supportive friends who were into the exact same thing he was, and this was something that he had support in and could really invest in. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the Jeff with a J turns into Julian with a J, and one of the ironies that came to me as I was writing the book is that Danny's best friend in real life is Rosa Pagliano. That she's the one who stands up for him when kids in his class make anti-Semitic remarks. She clearly likes him very much, but that he cannot be with Rosa. He cannot be friends with her precisely because they're sexually attracted to each other.
Yeah. Right. And then there's a distinction where is she with Jeff or is she not? And the whole time Danny thought that they were, so that drew a line as well.
We have time for maybe one more question. Anybody has something that could add lingering? Katie's got a question over there.
So Dr. Joyce said that you're writing a sequel to the book. I was just wondering if he's going to take the UFO story along with him in the sequel, or no?
No, the sequel, it's going to be quite different. It answers the question. What was it? I'm sorry, I don't remember. Yeah, what's your name again?
It's Nicole.
Nicole, yeah. It answers the question, what's going to happen to Danny at college? And Danny is going to be in college at a time when reality in this country became about as phantasmagoric as his UFO journal. That probably the most surreal year was 1968, the year that Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were shot, and the police rioted in the streets of Chicago outside the Democratic National Convention. And the sequel brings Danny into 1968. I decided not to keep up the UFO theme. And I made another decision, which is to write it in third person and to have Danny as the most important of several point of view characters. And Leon Shapiro will get his say.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all, and thanks to Professor Joy for the experience of being with you. I understand that you're heading into finals week. Good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Un applauso. Thank you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.